Hey everybody, welcome to my very basic guide. This episode, we'll be talking about the not-so-sacred act of being an Oathbreaker Paladin, a subclass found in the Dungeon Master's Guide, as it is usually meant for baddies and evildoers, but I wanted to make a video on it anyways, so here it is. The Oathbreaker subclass is for those of us that do not fear the dark side and can see through the lies of the Jedi. The Oathbreaker specific features kick in at level 3, replacing the progression of Goody Two-Shoes Paladin's Sacred Oath feature with their own unique Oathbreaker specific abilities and Oathbreaker spells. The Oathbreaker Paladin is for people who enjoy betraying everyone that ever trusted them and turning their backs on everything they ever stood for. It's a subclass that really speaks to those that don't care about balance and would rather leave the world in darkness. Oathbreakers are most likely reviled by their former brethren and will probably have to survive being hunted down by their old friends. But honestly, if anyone is not with you, then they're probably against you anyways, so no point in worrying about spilled milk. Despite being a not so good person, you still get a bunch of classic Paladin abilities outside of your Sacred Oath, such as Divine Sense, Divine Health, Lay on Hands, and of course Divine Smite. Starting us off on our magical journey of scum and villainy, we become super self-aware with Divine Sense, allowing us to become a radar of evil presences such as yourself. Using an action, you can detect 3 creature types within a 60-foot radius that is not blocked by total cover. The creatures you can discern are celestials, fiends, or undead, and you can also pick up their location. Within your 60-foot radius, you can also detect consecrated or desecrated areas, basically areas that are either sacred or have been defiled by dark forces. You can use Divine Sense a number of times equal to your Charisma modifier +1, and then we'll have to long rest in order to regain all of your Divine Sense uses. Paladins also receive Lay on Hands as another first level feature, perhaps one of the more iconic Paladin abilities. Lay on Hands is a rather unique healing ability as it is a pool of hit points that the Paladin can individually dole out depending on the severity of the situation. The total amount that you can heal is equal to 5 times your Paladin level. Using your action, you can touch a creature and choose how many hit points you want to restore, up to a maximum amount of what is left in your pool of healing. Lay on Hands also has the additional feature of being able to cure a disease or neutralize a poison, using up 5 hit points from your pool for each condition healed. Now moving on, the bread and butter of Paladin potency lies in their level 2 feature of Divine Smite. Being able to enhance any melee weapon attack with Holy Radiant Power after landing a hit is pretty crazy, as it directly allows the Paladin to convert their spell slots into guaranteed damage, and being able to do that multiple times per turn once you get extra attack at level 5 is also incredible. Other notable level 2 features include picking your fighting style option and the start of your spellcasting progression, getting 2 first level spell slots. Perhaps one of the more underappreciated abilities that Paladins get at level 3 is their Divine Health. Even though you betrayed everything that you once stood for, you're still a pretty healthy boy, and are immune to natural diseases, which I would imagine is a pretty enviable superpower to have during medieval times, and also in modern times. Finally, arriving at the point where you turn into a heretic and stray from the path, you first get Oathbreaker spells at level 3. Breaking your Sacred Oath causes you to lose all previous Paladin Oath spells, even though that sounds like you're getting spanked for being a naughty child. It's actually fine because you get Oathbreaker spells to fill the void of your dark soul. At level 3, you receive Hellish Rebuke and Inflict Wounds. Hellish Rebuke is a fantastic spell to pick up for a frontliner such as yourself, especially since you can take much more punishment compared to a flimsy warlock. Being able to dish out 2d10 damage under reaction is honestly very economical, even if they succeed on their dexterity saving throw. Inflict Wounds, on the other hand, is probably not going to see much play, even though it's usually a really good spell to have. It unfortunately competes with the Paladin's Divine Smite, which on average is going to be roughly equivalent or can even outperform the damage of Inflict Wounds for the same spell slots. For example, the average damage of 3d10 is 16.5, so having a 1d8 weapon with a strength modifier higher than +3 will give you average damage that is higher than Inflict Wounds. The average damage of Divine Smite gets even sweeter when you factor in the Paladin's fighting style options, such as dueling, or if the Paladin has a 2-handed weapon with great weapon fighting, or any other buffs to your melee weapon. These are all incentives to stick with Divine Smite, especially if your Charisma modifier is not high enough to reliably use a melee spell attack like Inflict Wounds. At level 5, you get Crown of Madness and Darkness. Crown of Madness is pretty situational and only really useful in cramped locations with multiple enemies adjacent to each other, but because it is a concentration spell that constantly consumes your action to maintain, you'll probably have better options than Crown of Madness. Darkness is probably even more situational since you don't have any ability to see through the magical darkness, and more often than not it's just going to be annoying to yourself and to your teammates. At level 9, you pick up Animate Dead and Bestow Curse. Animate Dead is a pretty cool spell to have, and it's even better on the Oathbreaker Paladin, since their primary aura ability, that they receive at level 7, will buff the damage output of your little army, but being a half-caster means that your undead friend group will be pretty limited in size. Bestow Curse is a pretty solid and versatile debuff concentration spell, giving you a fairly powerful list of varying options for multiple scenarios. From robbing an enemy of their action or just buffing your own damage output, it's a spell that will probably serve you well. At level 13, you gain the spells Blight and Confusion. Blight is a decent burst spell for full casters, but for a half caster like the Paladin, the Constitution saving throw, combined with the fact that the Paladin probably won't have that high of a spell save DC, makes it a tough sell, especially when compared to Divine Smite, which fulfills a similar function. Confusion, on the other hand, is a pretty fun and interesting 4th level spell that has the potential of winning a battle against a large horde of enemies. Being an area effect spell does lend it quite a bit of power, but its unreliability of either wasting multiple enemy turns or a 20% chance of being completely useless 4th level concentration spell makes it a pretty rough choice even at the best of times. At level 17, you receive Contagion and Dominate Person. Assuming we are using the updated Contagion text from the errata, the one that poisons the target for 3 rounds on the initial hit, then Contagion is a pretty good spell, assuming you have a high charisma score to land the initial melee spell attack. Poisoned is a strong condition, and the special diseases are even better. Especially from a spell that does not cost you concentration, the diseases have a serious potential to screw over a strong enemy if the fight drags on. Dominate Person is another solid 5th level spell to be picking up, although the spell does rely on a good charisma score, so Dominate Person might not always work out, but being able to flip an enemy for at least 1 round can easily turn the tide of a battle in your favor. Moving past the Oathbreaker spells, let's talk about their Channel Divinity options that Oathbreakers also unlock at level 3. As a level 3 Oathbreaker, you get Channel Divinity, Control Undead. The Oathbreaker uses their action to activate Control Undead on an undead creature that is within 30 feet and can be visually seen by the Paladin. The undead creature must then roll a wisdom saving throw to resist. If they fail, then the Oathbreaker gets to control them for 24 hours. If the undead succeeds on the wisdom saving throw, then nothing happens and you get to indulge in self-pity. Also, another important note to make is that the undead can only be controlled if their challenge rating is less than the Oathbreaker's level. You might have to short rest a lot to maintain your newfound friend, but it's still a really unique Channel Divinity option that excels at giving you the kind of attention that you deserve. The other Channel Divinity option that Oathbreakers receive at level 3 is Dreadful Aspect. Your hate has made you powerful, and it's time to show others what they are missing out on. Using your action, every creature of your choice within a 30-foot radius of your person must make a wisdom saving throw. If they succeed, then I guess they aren't impressed, but if they fail, then they are frightened of the Oathbreaker for 1 minute. If a frightened creature moves far enough away from the Paladin, then they can roll another wisdom saving throw to shake off their frightened condition if they end their turn more than 30 feet away from the Oathbreaker. Dreadful Aspect is pretty great, since it's an area effect fear ability that is pretty hard to get rid of in most combat zones, and you can even recharge your Channel Divinity feature on a short rest. Although it is important to keep in mind that Paladins only get 1 Channel Divinity charge, so even if you get to regain your uses on a short or long rest, it's still a fairly limited resource that you have to carefully expend. Getting to level 7, you get to channel your aggressive feelings into passive buffs as you let your hatred flow through you with your Aura of Hate. For the Oathbreaker, your hatred is your strength, and this theme is exemplified with this very aggressive aura, giving yourself and any fiends or undead within 10 feet of the Paladin extra melee weapon damage equal to the Oathbreaker's charisma modifier. This is situationally very bad because this aura also buffs enemy creatures, and you don't have the option of turning it on and off, which is a rather large weakness situationally, but definitely on brand for the kind of guy who's an Oathbreaker. Aura of Hate is pretty fantastic, even if you don't have an army of undead at your beck and call, as this extra charisma bonus to your damage will add up quite quickly, especially since it stacks with the standard strength damage modifier that melee weapons usually get. At level 18, like with other paladins, the range of your Aura of Hate extends to 30 feet, as your anger gives you focus and makes you stronger. The level 18 bump in range might come in handy if you're looking to build an army of evil with your local necromancer or your friendly neighborhood demon lord. Getting into level 15, you try and become a raid boss with the feature Supernatural Resistance. You get permanent passive resistance to physical damage types such as bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical weapons. This is comparable to level 4 Stone Skin spell or a weaker version of the Barbarian's rage resistances. Depending on your setting and how plentiful magic weapons and magical abilities are, Supernatural Resistance can be incredible or kinda useless, especially at higher tiers of play, such as at level 15 when you unlock this feature. Many enemies, especially during boss fights, will probably have some way of bypassing your supernatural resistance, relegating the level 15 feature to be only useful when fighting trash mobs or hordes of enemies, which again is still pretty good, just not as good as the name implies, I guess. Of course, having any sort of passive buff that is continuously helpful and has no duration or cost to use is definitely an ability that is nothing to sneeze at. Finally, reaching the pinnacle of being a fantasy supervillain, you arrive at your capstone at level 20, becoming a Dreadlord. Your supervillain title precedes you as the very shadows themselves become your minions. You get to use your action to emit a gloomy aura that reduces all bright light in a 30-foot radius around the Oathbreaker to be a dismal dim light. When an enemy is within that 30-foot radius of gloom, the Dreadlord is encouraged to jump scare their enemies into submission, since they now take 4d10 psychic damage at the start of their turn whenever the enemy has the frightened condition gifted to them by the Oathbreaker. This is really great synergy with your Channel Divinity Dreadful Aspect. Your gloomy Dreadlord aura lasts for 1 minute, and any creature of the Paladin's choice, including themselves, gets to be draped in deep shadows. giving them extra defensive capabilities against enemies that rely on their sight and don't have dark vision. Or at least I assume dark vision counters draped shadows, but it's kind of unclear if this deeper shadow affects someone with dark vision or not. This drapery of shadows gives disadvantage on any attack roll from a creature that relies on their normal eyeballs. During the 1 minute duration of the Dreadlord aura, the Oathbreaker can use their bonus action to make the shadow sharper, giving the Paladin a melee spell attack that targets one creature inside the aura, dealing 3d10 plus your charisma modifier, dealing necrotic damage. Being able to efficiently use your bonus action to deal a ton of damage each turn for 10 rounds is a pretty nice bonus, on top of the potential 4d10 psychic damage from spooking your foes within your aura. The Dreadlord ability is like your ultimate Giga Chad mode, so I guess it makes sense that you only get to use it once, and once you've blown your load, you're going to need a long rest to recharge the Dreadlord feature. The Oathbreaker subclass is truly a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural, and honestly, it's just a pretty cool package for people that enjoy the darker side of things, and has potentially really cool built-in storytelling aspect of either atoning for your misdeeds or continuing to live a life of scum and villainy. And that about does it for this very basic guide to the Oathbreaker Paladin as presented in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Thanks everybody for all of the positivity. I really appreciate everyone being here. And I never thought that, people would like what I do, so I'm glad that these videos are enjoyable to over like 1,000 people now. Thank you. And as always, I hope that anyone who watches my stuff enjoys what I create as much as I enjoy creating in the first place. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, goodbye for now.